We could not be more thankful and fortunate at this particular time to have Rabbi Frand with us. And the fact that Rabbi Frand returns year after year does not diminish our tremendous sense of Hakaras HaTov, our tremendous thanks to Rabbi Frand at this busy time in the yeshiva calendar and in the world calendar. We're also very fortunate that this morning was made possible by Paul Pariser in memory of his daughter, Stacy Lynn. You'll see the programs. She spread joy and love to all who met her, and in turn was much beloved by all. So may the words of inspiration that we have this morning be a source of merit to her soul. My job is to try to make sure things run on time. I want to thank all the people that made this possible as well. Our co-chairs, Adam and Marina Sragovich, and Gavin and Cheryl Horn. We're also very, very fortunate to have one of Rabbi Frand's very close Talmidim, one of the people that really has built our community, Rabbi Wogelanter. And then to thank the Torah High, the Adat Yeshurun, and also Rabbi Frand's office, Mrs. Raskus, Helen Raskus in Baltimore. Thank them for all of the hard work organizing this, as well as the committee that you'll see in this morning's program. And it's my pleasure to call up now, hopefully Adam Sragovich and Gavin Horn.
In San Diego, sometimes we joke that we're in Gullus from Gullus, that it's a second level of isolation from the Jewish community, and so it's really exciting for us to have someone like Rabbi Frand, especially. You look around, and the community here was built, as we say, by a Ner Yisrael alum, Rabbi Wogelanter, and I think if you make a chart and you look at the amount of Talmud classes taught in the city of San Diego, single-handedly Rabbi Wogelanter accounts for a highly disproportionate percentage of those. I imagine that this is partly Rav Frand's doing. Inspiration, I never had the chance to meet him, but I assume Rav Ruderman as well, from that ethic from Ner Yisrael in Baltimore. I want to just say one or two things. I remember when Rav Frand has been here in the past, he had a talk to us about Islam and Judaism. And he mentioned that if you have two children and one of the sons is a juvenile delinquent, but he calls you 5 times a day, and you have another son who's a favorite son, but he calls you 2 or 3 times a year, you know, it might influence how often you call. And so he was encouraging us Jews to up our game. And so we are very far in this Gullus from Gullus, but we remember what you tell us. We appreciate all that you've done. It's hard to imagine, I don't know, Ner Yisrael might have 700 Talmidim. So I don't know if you can multiply all of this by 700 each year, by the number of years you've been there. But we definitely appreciate it. Also, just a plug, a thanks to Rabbi Pikus, who's also a big part of this event and these kinds of events. Thank God, daughter number 4 I have is now a senior in the school. 93% of the girls, I think, passed the AP exam, so it's an incredible school. My daughter just graduated, is at the Migdal Seminary in Israel, so girls also are able to go to fantastic seminaries if that's the route that they choose to take. For those who don't know, if you're keeping score or taking notes at home, there is something called the Yad Yechiel Institute, which was really set up to disseminate the lectures and teaching of Rabbi Frand. He's also on the Torah Conferencing Network. I think it's probably 70 or 75 cities where his weekly lectures are broadcast. So in keeping with Rabbi Pikus being as modest as he is, I think we also have, you may not be aware of sort of the extent to which we're fortunate and we have such a giant with us today. So we're really looking forward to it, very much appreciate it, and give what I'm sure is one of your top students the opportunity to really introduce you properly. So thank you so much for coming.
I could speak for hours on a good day, but I just want to share two very important thoughts. And the first is that Adam said it, and I think that it can't be said enough, the appreciation that we all need to have for Rabbi Pikus and everything that he does. It's not just localized to today. It's not just about this event. It's about everything that he pours into the community and pours into our young ladies in shaping them as Benos Torah and really creating an incredible Torah institution. And for me personally, I want to say Hakar Satov, express Hakar Satov, and on behalf of all of us, a tremendous Hakar Satov. And again, not for this morning, but for everything that Rabbi Pikus does. It's sometimes when you do things like that, you don't realize the kind of impact it has. But from all of us, we tell you that the impact is huge, and we wish you the koyach to be able to continue onwards and upwards in really inspiring our city. Shkoyach. For me personally, this event is always a very special moment. I had the opportunity of learning with and really being shaped by Rabbi Frand. And those were amazing years, and every year since has really been amazing. And these past years, where we've had the opportunity really just to grab just a few moments with him, is really like, it's mechaya. It gives me such a sense of chizuk, such a sense of strength. It's really amazing. We know that during this time of year, the time of we blow shofar, getting ready for Rosh Hashanah, Ur Yeshenim Mishinaschem, that the whole concept is to wake us up from our sleep. And it's not just through the sound of shofar, and it's not just through the sound of slichos, and it's not just through all the internal work that we have to do. But sometimes we need to hear voices from the outside in order to be able to awaken us and to be able to inspire us and uplift us. And how incredibly fortunate we are to be able to have really like the Rosh Medabrim from the chief of the speakers, the head of the speakers in our world, but not speakers, but those that uplift and guide a generation. How fortunate we are to be able to have, for me it feels like to have my father here, and for all of us to feel as if we have really one of the Gedolei Yisrael, one of the leaders and giants of our generation, to be able to come and to share some words with us and to be able to try to grab us and uplift us at this time is really something very special. It gives me great pleasure and honor to be able to welcome Rabbi Frand and to invite him to share with us some words of inspiration.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Wogelanter. Indeed, a dear Talmud of mine, who I had the pleasure of having him in my class for several years, and we've had an ongoing relationship for the past 30 years. And not only I, but the entire yeshiva takes great pride in what he has accomplished over here. This past week, I had another Talmud who happened to be vacationing in La Jolla, and he spent a couple days in this shul. And he called me back and he said he can't imagine what Rabbi Wogelanter has accomplished over here, the learning that goes on over here. So it's a schus that I can call him a student of mine. I deal a lot with different cities and different peoples and different personalities. I don't know of any person who's sweeter and more kind than Rabbi Pikus, and how considerate he is for me, and how everything is arranged to the last T, and it's with love, and he's a pleasure to deal with. And you're fortunate in this community to have such a person who's taking care of your children, taking care of your daughters. You should be able to do so for many, many years to come. I just want to recognize some of the Rabboni Ha'ir that I see, Rabbi Bogopolsky, Rabbi Weiser, Unfortunately, don't know everyone here, but they've always come and want to recognize their presence. I also want to give a personal thanks. I walked into the Wogelanter home this morning about 9:30 a.m. and Mrs. Wogelanter is frying fish. So who fries fish at 9:30 in the morning on a Sunday morning? So little did I know that's fried fish is for me. That's going to be my lunch. As we all know, there's no such things as kosher meals on domestic flights anymore. And even though the community is very kind to fly me first class, in first class meals, they don't even have kosher meals anymore, which is a travesty. And you pay all that money, the least they can give you is a salami sandwich. But therefore, I appreciate Mrs. Wogelanter's efforts. You know, when we come into shul on Rosh Hashanah and we look around the shul, it's one of those days of the year that we take stock, and we look around the shul and everybody has their specific place in the shul, and then we notice that there's some people who are no longer in the shul, no longer here. And that's because they are no longer alive. And that is because on last Rosh Hashanah, last Yom Kippurim, it was decided in heaven that for whatever reason, these people had finished their time on earth, and now it is time for them to leave this earth. And that's why they're no longer there. That's why there's no one sitting behind you or next to you or 2 rows behind you, which is very sobering. And those people that have left this earth, they also have to approach another Yom Adin, a day of judgment. A day of Rosh Hashanah is a day of judgment. But when we leave this earth, we have to approach another day of judgment, which is far more frightening than the day of judgment that we will face in a matter of 8 or 9 days. And when they go up to Shamayim, they go up in front of the Kisei HaKavod in the heavenly throne, there is a final that they have to take. It's what I call the ultimate final. Theoretically, it should be a relatively easy final to take. There are a total of 6 questions on the final. And we know the questions beforehand. Now imagine if when we were in school, we'd know the final, we'd know the questions, we could prepare for them. But in spite of the fact that we know the questions, this is still a difficult final to take. I'm going to go over 4 of those 6 questions that we will be asked, every one of us, when we leave this earth and we appear in front of the holy throne. The Gemara says in Shabbos, when they bring a person up to Shamayim, to sky, to face the din, the final judgment, they ask him, Nososov and Asata Be'emuna, which simply means, were you honest in your business dealings? Number 2, Kavata Itim L'Torah. Number 2, did you set aside times for learning? Number 3, Osakta B'Piri V'Rivya. Again, this is the simple translation. Did you have children? Number 4, Pilpalta Tzipisa Yeshua. Did you eagerly anticipate the coming of the Mashiach? That's the simple translation of those 4 questions. Nasosa Nasata Be'emuna, were you honest in business? And if you women in the crowd who've never been into business, it should be an easy answer for you to take. What do you mean? I was a stay-home mom all my life. I didn't have to engage in business. Okay, you get out of that question. Kovata Yitim L'Torah, did you establish times to sit and learn? Well, if you're a woman, the halacha is a woman do not have to learn Torah. So you get a pass on that question as well. You're down to 2 questions. If you blow this, you're really in bad shape. Number 3, the question is, Osakta B'Piri V'Rivya. Did you bring children into the world? But that is not what that question really means. Because we not always are able to bring children into this world. Either because we never get married, because people are infertile, for whatever reason there may be. And therefore that question of Asakta B'Piri V'Rivya really means, did you try to have children? and you try to promote bringing children into the world. If you personally couldn't bring children into the world, then did you give to organizations like Bonei Olam or a time in which they go ahead and to promote and they give money, millions of dollars to infertile couples to have children? That's an opportunity for each and every one of us to fulfill the requirement of a sakta b'piri v'rivya. And the question about kavata itim l'Torah, even if you're a woman, you're going to have to answer that question. And it does not mean that you actually study the Talmud, but that you have a husband, a father, a brother, who you enabled him to be able to sit and learn. And if you had none of the above, did you give money to yeshivas and to kollelem so that there would be able to people to sit and learn? And each and every one of us, and women included, will be asked about that. What did you do for the promotion of Torah? And tzipisa Yeshua, did you eagerly await the coming of the Mashiach? Or did you perhaps think from time to time, I'll live in La Jolla, California, the best climate in the United States of America, average temperature of 75 degrees, it doesn't rain here, I don't know how many days a year, it's not humid, it's not hot, come back to Baltimore, Maryland, I'll show you hot, I'll show you humid, I'll show you terrible weather. So maybe you didn't, who needs Mashiach? What could be better than La Jolla? That's an attitude that you cannot take. Because as good as it may be here, when the Mashiach comes and we'll all be in Israel, that will be utopia, not here. But let's get back to that first question. Nososov and asata be'emuna. Were you honest when it came to business? And I said, well, if you're not in business, do you have anything to worry about? The answer is yes. Because the great Hasidic Rebbe, the Menachem Mendel of Rimanov, had a different take on that question about Nososov and asata be'emuna. And it does not mean business. But it means, did you engage and you did try to grow in your emunah, in your faith of God? That question is not only about business. It's about one of the most basic things that a Jew has to worry about, faith in God. Did you believe in God? Did you grow with your emunah? Did you do things throughout your lifetime that increased your understanding of what it means to be a believer and what that encompasses? Or did your level of emunah on your understanding of believing in God remain at a childish level? My wife told me last night she spent Shabbos with my son in Baltimore, Maryland. They have a set of 7-year-old twins. So one of the twins asked my wife, who's God's father? An interesting question. It's a 7-year-old's understanding of what God is. Everybody has to have a father. But some of us remain at that 7-year-old understanding of what a God is. Because let's face it, every single one of you in this room is a believer, is a maimon. Because if you were not a maimon, if you did not believe in God, then what on earth are you doing here on a beautiful Sunday morning in La Jolla, California, sitting in a shul? The answer is you believe. Each and every one of you. You are a maimon. But did we become bigger maminim, more perfect maminim? Did we increase our emunah? Do we have a deeper understanding of what it means to be a maimon? That's the question of nososov and asata. Did you engage in the back and forth of what it means to be a believing Jew? That's that question of nososov and asata be'emunah. Because yes, you believe, but do you really believe? When you're going down I-5 and you see a California State Patrol car in back of you, do you check your speedometer? And if you're going too fast, do you slow down somewhat? And if you see the flashing lights, does your heart skip and you become afraid from the California State Trooper? And the answer to all of the above is, yes, I do. And what's the worst that can happen? He'll pull you over and give you a ticket and maybe give you points because he's watching what you're doing. Now let me ask you something. Is God watching what you are doing? Does God know what you are doing as well as this California state trooper? And just like you would not speed in front of the trooper, why do we do things even though we know full well that God is watching? Do you believe or don't you not believe? Do you believe that there's a God in heaven that knows everything about what people do and will hold us all account for what we do? So how on earth could we ever do something wrong? Why will we have to stand here on Yom Kippur? We couldn't do a sin. So there's this gap between, yes, I am a believer, but apparently not such a believer. And the answer to that is because there exists a chasm, a gap between our mind and our heart. We intellectually believe that there is a God and he knows that he's aware of what we do and he'll be held accountable. But that's in our minds. But in our heart, it's not as real. And that's what this speech is about. And that is what that question is about. Did you do anything in your life to close the gap between brain and heart? Between making God more than a concept, but making him a reality. That's what it means. Did you become a bigger maimon? How do we do that? The part of the answer to that is that we have to train ourselves in emunah. Because if you think about it, the word emunah in Hebrew is related to the word imun. Imun means to train. You must practice emunah. You must train yourself in emunah. If it does not come by itself, it does not come naturally, unless you make a conscious effort to train yourself in emunah. You won't become a bigger maimon. It's like, if you pardon the mundane analogy, it's like playing piano. Unless you practice it, you're not going to get any better at it. It's like golf. Why are there people out on the golf course? Because they got to get better. They got to improve their stroke. They got to improve their drive. Because you want to do something, you got to train yourself. You have to practice. You have to practice emunah. Imun, train. I have to train myself. Because it's not easy. Because I can see the trooper in my rearview mirror. I cannot see God. And that's why God tells us in the Torah, "Uvikashtem misham es Hashem aleikecha umatzasa." You have to seek out God. You have to seek him. You can't smell him, you can't feel him, you can't see him. Uvikashtem, but you have to seek him out. When you were kids, did you play hide and go seek? So a Hasidic Rebbe once said, you know the game. Kid hides behind the tree and somebody has to find him. And you're sitting there behind the tree and you're thinking to yourself, I really hid myself well because he can't find me. And 2 minutes go by and 5 minutes go by and all of a sudden nobody's finding you. You realize, you know what, he's not looking for me anymore. The Hasidic Rebbe said that's sometimes how God feels. I've hid behind the clouds and I want you to find me, but all of a sudden God realizes nobody's looking for him anymore. But you have to make that effort. So how does one train themselves? How do we make God more of a reality? So here are a couple suggestions. I've said this in the past in other venues. It is important and very helpful to keep a diary of when you see the hand of God in your life. And it happens all the times, in the smallest of things. But write it down. You know, I know of a family that every single year they have a Sudas Haidah, a Thanksgiving meal, not at the end of November, but a Thanksgiving meal in which the father records throughout the year. He puts in a little notebook where they saw the hand of God and how God saved them, how the kid fell off the bike and he wasn't wearing his helmet and he did not get a concussion. Or how you went into tests, you were having terrible chest pains, and you went into the hospital thinking the worst, and the doctor came back and said, you ate too many onion bagels, and it was indigestion. And you write that down and say, thank God. That's all it was. And he keeps a diary of this throughout the 365 days of the year. And at one time during the year, he gathers the entire family together and says, now we're going to have a Suda Seidah. We're having a Thanksgiving meal. And he reads all of the little incidents throughout the entire year where God saved us from perhaps something far greater. That's how you become aware of God. You become conscious of God. My wife and I, on our Friday night meal, sit down before the meal, and we say to each other, where did you see the hand of God in this week? And something that could be as mundane and as simple as the recipe worked. Or I didn't know what I was going to say Thursday night in Shir, and I found something at the last minute. That's the hand of God. Rabbi Michael Twersky from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, brilliant man, wonderful person, has a little different take on how to train in Amunah. He says there's an interesting Gemara in Masechta Erechin. The Gemara wants to know ad heichen Yisurim. There's something that we call Yisurim. Yisurim are troubles that people suffer. Illness, financial setbacks, trouble with our children, a leaky roof, an accident. These are called Yisurim, punishments. So the Gemara in Masechta Erechin knows what is the minimum amount of something that could happen to you that's still called Yisurim. You know, if a person gets into an accident, that's Yisurim. A person breaks his leg, that's Yisurim. A woman loses a child, that's Yisurim. But what's the minimal amount? So there are three opinions in the Gemara. One opinion is, Kol she'ar goy beged lo b'yishvein miskabel olav. You buy a suit, you take it to the tailor, and lo and behold, it doesn't fit. You took the outfit to the tailor, this is what you're supposed to wear, Rosh Hashanah, and it doesn't fit, and what are you supposed to do now? That's Yisurim. Not tragic, not life-threatening. It's aggravating. That's Yisurim. Gemara says, no, of course that's Yisurim. You know what Yisurim is? If you pour yourself a cup of coffee in the morning, but rather thinking you thought that the water was hot, but it was cold, and you went ahead and poured it into your coffee, and now you have cold coffee. You say, darn it, or worse. That's Yisurim. It's aggravating. Or the Gemara says you reach into your pocket to take out a $5 bill and all you have is a $1 bill. Oy, that's Yisurim because I have to reach in again. Now what's the point of the Gemara? What's the point of the Gemara to tell us how minimal Yisurim suffering can be? Rabbi Michael Twersky suggests, and we should bear this in mind, because every time something like this happens to us, something aggravating, something upsetting, God is punishing us. But by punishing us with these little things, he staves off much bigger punishments. And when these things happen to you and you pour the cold water into the coffee, you have to think, God gave me this, but this helps me later on down the road. The Hasidic Rabbeim say an example of this, a mashal, a parable of a king who had a son who committed a capital crime for which the punishment is stoning. And the son committed the crime, and now the father, the king, was faced with the dilemma, what should I do? Can I stone my own son? Can I kill my own son? On the other hand, if I don't kill my own son, I'm a hypocrite. How's everybody going to look at me? So what do? He had this dilemma. He had this trauma. So one of his advisors says, take that big boulder that they throw on the person to crush him, and take that boulder and crush it into thousands of little pebbles. And every time you see your son, throw a little pebble at him. So you're stoning him. But you're not killing him. And you're not hurting him. And that is how we have to look at these little moments of aggravation and frustration. God is being kind to us. Because I'd rather have my car not start, or I'd like to rather get soaked in a downpour, an unexpected downpour, than to really suffer something far worse. That's how you see the hand of God. Every little thing that happens to you, whether it's good or whether it's bad, that's coming from God. He's real. You know, I had such an incident a couple weeks ago when I tried to employ this philosophy of, yes, it's frustrating, yes, it's upsetting, but this is much better than what could be. We were in Spain this past summer. We came back from Barcelona to Philadelphia because that was the only nonstop flight in the area, Philadelphia to Barcelona. I left my car in Philadelphia, and I found out a service that what you do is you drive to their facility, but rather having to get into a shuttle bus, they take you in your own car to the airport. You don't have to schlep your luggage. They take you to the airport, and then when you get back, you call the airport, they pick you up in your car. And then I even ordered white glove service. And for $14.95 extra, they pick you up in your own car, but you don't have to take the driver back to the facility. You can get on your way. Great. Okay, get back to Philadelphia. 8-hour and a half flight. Barely slept the night before. Could not sleep on the plane. I'm tired. I'm hot. So, I'm a good little boy. It says, do not call until you have your luggage and you're at the curbside. I'm a Yeki. I'm a German. It says do that, I do that. I have my luggage. I'm at the curb. It's 91 degrees in Philadelphia. It's as humid as you could cut it with a knife. There are a million people all honking. The exhaust fume is terrible. But, okay, I called. When's my car ready? 5 minutes. Fine. Okay, I can take that. 5 minutes, no car. 10 minutes, no car. Say to myself, God's being good to me. Who knows what's going on in I-95 to Baltimore? Maybe there's some kind of accident. Maybe, who knows? God's being good to me. 15 minutes, no car. 20 minutes, I finally call up the girl and say, where is my car? It's 20 minutes. She says, I don't know where your car is. I said, well, can't you find out? Okay, puts me on hold. I'll find out. Then she comes back and she tells me, they had to junk your car. I say, what? Why did you junk my car? Because it wouldn't start. I said, because my car wouldn't start, you junked it? Are you out of your mind? At this point, I wasn't being so philosophical about God. And I run inside the terminal because maybe I'm not hearing her right. I said, why on earth did you junk? It's a brand new car. It's 2014. Why did it have to be junked? Because it wouldn't start. I said, so what? So we had to jump it. Jump. Now, I know my hearing is not what it used to be. But I don't know, was her hearing or her diction or my hearing, but I heard junk. At which point I was not so philosophical and equanimous about that. But it helped me for a few minutes. There's another form of Emunah training. And that is, ironically, to be more dependent on Him. And He will respond in kind. Listen well to that. Trust Him more. Rely on Him more. Don't think that you can always figure it out yourself. And He will respond in kind. Come to the realization, even if you are a type A personality, that this is not up to me. There's only so much I can do. And after you make your normal hishtadlus and effort, in whatever it may be, you make your due diligence when you're doing a deal. You look into prospective people to be in-laws of your children. You check out the medical facilities to make sure that the person's a good doctor. You do all of that, but there comes a point at which you say, I've done what I have to do, and the rest is up to you, God, and I put my hands in you. You know, the most basic law of supply and demand is the relationship between a nursing baby and a nursing mother. The more the baby demands, the more the mother will supply. And the less the baby demands, the less the mother will produce. None less a personage than David HaMelech, David, king of Israel, described his relationship like that of a nursing baby to the mother. Kagamul alai imai, kagamul alai nafshi. My relationship with God is like that of a nursing baby. The more I want, the more He gives. And on the contrary, the more I can think I can do it on my own, God says, Geh gesunte hate, go ahead. You try it yourself. And that's what we have to do. You know, we all pay lip service to Parnasa comes from God. Our livelihood comes from God. Refuah comes from God. God is the Reifei Cholim. God is the ultimate doctor. Yeah, that's what we say. But do we actually do it? You know, Rabbi Azriel Tauber, a wonderful individual, wrote a book on Emunah B'toch and wrote a book on the subject of Emunah. And he writes over there how his grandfather owned a soda factory in Czechoslovakia. His grandfather really learned, and his grandmothers that took care of the factory. He would come in to do the books. Rabbi Tauber's grandfather had a policy that they do not accept any orders after 12 noon on Erev Shabbos. Because they want to get ready for Shabbos. They don't want anything interfering in their preparations for Shabbos. So Vahi Ayoim, it was a case, a customer comes in right before noon on Erev Shabbos and wants to place a large order from the soda factory. And his wife is willing to take it. And Rabbi Tauber is there. His grandfather is there. And he says, no, we do not process orders after Chatzos. And his wife says to him, but when the business is failing, here we have in our hands ability to have a big order. This is from God. God's giving us this order. And Rabbi Tauber says to her, if God wants us to have an order, He is not going to bring it to us on Erev Shabbos afternoon. And refused the order. Because he really believed it's God that provides the parnasa, and He's going to provide it in the kosherest of ways. And here's even a more dramatic story. There's a rabbi named Rabbi Yisrael Belsky. He was the Rosh Yeshiva, Yeshivas Ner Yisrael. He was a rabbinic advisor to the OU Kashrus division. He was once taken to the hospital with severe abdominal pains and chest pains. And they took him to Maimonides Hospital in the Borough Park section of Brooklyn. It was determined that he had a ruptured abdominal aorta, a life-threatening condition. They called in a Jewish surgeon to perform the very delicate surgery. However, people in the Borough Park community, the Flatbush community, said, this is not good enough for Rabbi Belsky. He's not going to operate it in a little hospital in Brooklyn, Maimonides. We have to take him to Manhattan Hospital, Clubber Presbyterian, Cornell Medical Center. He has to get the best care with the best surgeon in town. So they are ready to take him to the other facility, and Rabbi Belsky refused to go. And he said, it is not kavod abrius, it is not respectful to call in a surgeon and then not use him because there is someone more famous in a different facility. If we believe Hashem is the Roife, that he's the doctor, and we have a competent doctor here, there's no need to switch. And he didn't. And the surgery was performed, and he walked out a healed man. That's more than putting your money where your mouth is. That is putting your life on the line. That is saying, I really believe that God is the one that heals. And if this surgeon is a competent surgeon, and especially in the fact once you've called him in, then you take with that, and you leave the rest up to God. That's what I mean. Be more dependent on him. Do you know what serenity comes when we have such faith? How much calmer we would be. I've done what I have to do. The rest is up to him. There would be no need for blood pressure medication. There would be no need for psychological counseling. I have my faith in him. I did what I was supposed to do. He runs the world, not me. There's a book in Emunah written by a woman named Mrs. Esther Stern. She relates the following story. There was a Jew in Eretz Yisrael. His name was Rabbi Michael Feinstein, or Michael Feinstein. He was the son-in-law of the Brisker Rov. I don't know if those words are meaningful to you, but the Brisker Rov was during the 1950s the greatest rabbi in the state of Israel. Rabbi Feinstein was his son-in-law, Michael Feinstein, not Rabbi Yissocher Feinstein. They had a daughter who had asthma, and she was having a severe asthma attack. They looked all over the house for her nebulizers. They couldn't find them. They called the ambulance. The ambulance came. By the time the ambulance came, the girl had died. They were preparing to go to the funeral, and they looked under her bed, and there were 3 nebulizers. In addition to the devastation of Rahman al-Islam losing a daughter, here they said to themselves, all we had to do was look under the bed and she'd be alive today. They were devastated, as you can imagine. Rav Yaakov Galinsky, one of the famous speakers of Yerushalayim, came to the house to be Menachem Oval to pay a shiva called. And he saw how devastated they were. And Rav Yaakov Galinsky says to Michael Feinstein, don't you remember what we learned together when we were learning in the Lomzer Yeshiva? Don't you remember that we said that a person has to make his histadlus, has to make his efforts for the future and to make inquiries, etc., etc. But after something has transpired, one should never feel remorse for the past. You did what you did the most you could do. And that's obviously the way God wanted it. Or as I like to express it, shoulda, woulda, coulda. As he said, is heresy. could have done this. I should have done this. That's kfira, because that's saying, I could have changed it. For whatever reason, God wanted that girl to die. God wanted that they should not find the nebulizers in the most obvious of places. This is what God Almighty wanted. And if one believes that God runs the world, and He gives us the sense to make the decisions that we make, and sometimes He doesn't give us the sense to make the decisions, then that's the way He wants it. And that gave solace to Rav Michal Feinstein. That's the serenity that comes with Emunah. You know, there was once a Jew who lived in Russia. His name was Rav Mendel Futterfuss. He's not a famous person. He was a Lubavitcher Chassid. He was in Siberia for many years. And he survived horrible conditions, under sub-zero conditions. Many years later, he made it to Eretz Yisrael. And people would ask him, how did you survive Siberia? And he said over the following story, which I quote. I grew up in a small town in Russia, and one day a tightrope walker was going to perform in front of the whole town. He tied a rope between two towering peaks with a huge chasm between them, and then proceeded to walk the rope between the two peaks. People's hearts were pounding. When he got to the other side, he asked the crowd, should I walk back now? And everybody shouted, no! It was too scary the first time. But that did not deter the tight walker. He went and walked back the same way. And then he did something even more daring. He took a wheelbarrow and he walked on the tightrope from one end to the other. But that wasn't enough. He put his child in the wheelbarrow. And when they asked the child, when he got to the other side, were you afraid? And the child responded in Yiddish, which I'll explain immediately to English. Ob de Tate trok darf man nicht sorgen. If the father is caring, you don't have to worry. After the performance, this Mendel Futterfuss went up to the tightrope walker and asked the man, how does he do it? And he said, I never look back, I never look forward, and I never look how far I have to go. I take one step at a time and concentrate fully on that one step, which I know with my skill I can accomplish. And then Rav Mendel Futterfuss said, and that is how I survived Siberia. I didn't think about the suffering I've gone through. I didn't think what could happen. I did not think about the future. I only concentrated on surviving the moment. The aforementioned Rabbi Israel Tauber writes in that book on Emunah and Bitochen, when he made Sheva Brachos, the post-wedding celebration for his last daughter. It happened to be the Parshas HaShavua was Parshas Shoftim, which we read a couple weeks ago. In that parsha, the pasuk says, "Tomim tihiyeh im Hashem aleikecha." A person should be of complete faith with God. And even though Rashi normally only translates and provides the simple translation, but over here Rashi veers from his normal course of teaching and he tells us life's advice. Tomim tiyem Hashem alekecha, says Rashi, hisalech imoy betmimis v'titzapeloi v'leisachakor achar ha'asidus. Do not try to figure out the future. Just have faith in Him. Elokol ma sheyavoy olecha kabel betmimis. Don't try to figure it out. Don't try to figure out how on earth is this ever going to happen. Tomim tia. Then he turned to his father, Rabbi Yisrael Tauber's father, who was sitting there at the Sheva Brachas. And he turned to him and he said, do you remember that night in 1944 when we were in the bomb shelter in Budapest, Hungary? When we had already been separated and our mother had been taken to Auschwitz? And you and I and my three little brothers were there in that bombshell. And then all of a sudden a bomb hit the building, and the older Rabbi Tauber fainted, became unconscious. When he came to, he took his little 6-year-old son, Ezriel, took him under the blanket, and told him what he thought was his last will and testament. I'm about to die. Your mother is probably no longer alive. But don't worry. Hashem is the Avi HaYesayimim. God is the father of the orphans. So you don't have to worry. Take care of your younger brothers. They don't even know that they're Jewish. Their Hebrew names are Yitzchak, Tzvi, Abachia, and Yechiel. Make sure that they know that they're Jewish. The war will end, and then Moshiach will come. And then Rabbi Tauber turns to his father and says, do you remember that conversation? And if a Navi, if a prophet would have come into that bomb shelter and told you that both you and your wife would survive, that you would have 5 more children, and that in 50 years from now, you will be sitting at the Sheva Brachas of your granddaughter, surrounded by your children and grandchildren in Monsey, New York, would have you believed the prophet? And he said, no! Because it was impossible to believe. How could it happen? I'm half dead. My wife is dead. I'm in a bomb shelter in Budapest. I'm probably going to lose my sons. That's what Rashi means. Loitach or achar ha'asidus. Don't try to figure out the future, because you can't. I'll share with you one last story. I share this with the permission of the family. And I will share her name because perhaps some of you are familiar with her. This past summer on the 27th of Tammuz, Mrs. Michelle Jacobowitz passed away. Mrs. Jacobowitz was the wife of Dr. Julian Yoel Jacobowitz. He's a practicing physician in Baltimore, Maryland, who is the campus doctor and has a huge practice in Baltimore, most of the Jewish community. She died of cancer. But here is what's amazing. 11 years before she was diagnosed with this cancer, she never told her children. And she lived 11 years with this cancer, having raised 10 children, 7 boys and 3 girls, and they never realized that she had cancer. And she was one of the most vivacious, vibrant, smiley, upbeat women that I have ever met. She went to every Sheva Brachas and every Chasana and every funeral and every event. She was part of Bikur Cholim. She was part of Chevra Kadisha. She was literally the woman about town all the time, taking care of her husband and her 10 children. You couldn't tell it on her. She was a smiley woman, a with-it woman. I went to Dr. Jacobowitz after everything happened. She got sick right before Pesach. She made Pesach for her family, not a word. After Pesach, things began to go downhill. And then everybody found out and nobody could believe it. Michelle? Picture of health. So after all was said and done, I went to Dr. Jacobowitz and I said, I think I know how she did it. There's a Rashi in Parsha Shoftim. Tomim tiyeh im Hashem aleikecha. V'leisacha karachar ha'asidus. And don't try to figure out the future. Take one day at a time. Put your whole faith in the Rebbeinu Shalom because he knows what he's doing. And he told me, Dr. Jacobowitz, that is precisely how she lived. That serenity, that menuchas hanefesh, that peace of mind, is what we all so desperately desire. And that is how we have to do it. Live one day at a time. Don't try to outsmart God. Remember, he is the Avi HaYesomim Adayin Almanais. He's the Reifei Chol Basar. He's the Zonim Afarnis Lakayel. And hopefully, Rebbeinu Shalom will continue to bless each and every one of you this year with a Ksiva Chasiva Taiva, a Shana Taiva Masuka, a sweet year. And Amitz Hashem, even here in wonderful La Jolla, we should look forward to the greeting of the Mashiach, B'mheira of Yameinu, Amen.
Thank you all very much for coming, and please have a wonderful day.